Welcome, Andrea Campbell, candidate for Attorney General.
Andrea, if you're present, the floor is yours.
Thank you all for having me. And Kathy, thank you for organizing and coordinating, of course, with the campaign. I know how busy folks are, so I really appreciate everything you're doing for the party and, of course, for your community and for the state and the Commonwealth. So I really appreciate it. Obviously, I'm Andrea Campbell, and I'm a candidate for Attorney General. And I'm really excited to be here to answer your questions if there is time, Kathy.
Yep.
Awesome. So I'll just tell folks just a little bit about me and use the bulk of the time to answer your questions on the issues you care about the most. I actually jumped into the race really recognizing, even as we sit on this Zoom, that many families in the Commonwealth are struggling right now. They're very worried about whether or not they're going to be able to prosper and thrive or rebound coming out of COVID. At the same time, I think they're frustrated with government and don't necessarily see government as a solution to those daily struggles. What I've also been stressing, though, is that we live in the best state in the nation, and that government, and especially the Attorney General's office, can indeed help families and residents with almost everything they're grappling with on a daily basis. And how do I know we live in the best state in the nation? I think I'm actually living proof. I had a childhood filled with incredible instability. When I was 8 months old, my mom actually died in a car accident going to visit my father, who was incarcerated at the time. My father and my brothers cycled in and out of the prison system, and my twin brother, Andre, would die 10 years ago while in the custody of the Department of Correction as a pretrial detainee when he was only 29 years old. And so I do think I'm living proof that a girl who grew up in public housing with the family torn apart by such tragedy could turn that pain into purpose. I'm the first in my family to go to college, the first in my family to go to law school and become a lawyer. And I've dedicated my entire life, not just personally, and breaking these cycles of poverty and trauma and incarceration for my two boys, but also professionally, making sure every resident in this state has access to the same opportunities I had so they too could thrive and reach their full potential. And I've done that in different ways. I started my legal career representing students and families in education cases for free, especially students with disabilities and families that fell below the poverty line, holding every system, traditional public schools, charter schools, private schools, MECO schools, you name it, accountable, and pushing them to deliver, of course, an excellent education to those families. I've also worked in state government as an attorney for Governor Deval Patrick, where I handled a whole host of issues for him: transportation, education, legislation, pushing for equity, pushing for, of course, universal health care, and so much more. I've also done it as a general counsel at a regional planning agency that covers 101 municipalities in the state, pushing for regional equity, which I know is still a major issue in this state. And as some of you probably know, I've done it as a local elected official. And I'm running for Attorney General, stressing that this office is more than just the chief law enforcement office. Yes, enforce all of our laws equitably and fairly and make sure they are implemented. But at the same time, the office has the tools, the resources, and the talent to make sure every single family has access to a great education for their children, access to health care, including mental health and behavioral health, all the tools to help families stay in their home, to even buy a home and grow their wealth. Every tool, of course, to protect our workers, all the tools to protect us against predatory practices, especially seniors, every tool to deal with racial disparities, public corruption, and of course, to ensure the neighborhoods in which we live or raising our children. And I have two beautiful boys, that those communities are safe and more resilient and prepared for the next climate event or even the next pandemic. And I'm honored to be here with all of you tonight to answer your questions. I'm also honored to have the support of Senator Markey in this race, former Congressman Kennedy in this race, and so many other elected officials representing every single county in Massachusetts. But I'm not taking anything or anyone for granted, really working hard and getting out to as many communities as possible, and hope to, of course, see you in person at some point soon. So really grateful to be here. Kathy, I'm done talking. That would be a very boring Zoom, but happy to answer your questions on the issues you care about the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Before I open it up to other people, as I'm going to take my prerogative as chair and ask you the first question. Um, One issue in this area has been the Weymouth compressor station, and the FERC recently found that they shouldn't have approved all those permits because of the proximity to environmental justice communities. And recently, a judge just negated the waterways permit for the compressor station. I read recently that you have the endorsement of the Environmental League of
That's right.
Massachusetts, which I think is very impressive. What 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 can we do about this existing compressor station and and um, and its impact on Braintree and Weymouth and Quincy and those environmental justice communities?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I'm honored to have the support of the Environmental League of Massachusetts, and it is a big deal. I neglected to mention it. It just happened yesterday. Actually, it's all one day. Yesterday, and part of why they came out so early in this race was because I told them that I would continue fierce leadership. One of our current AG. I'm opposed to the compressor station, what's happening. I've been on the record in several communities with respect to that issue. I've been in communication with folks already in the AG's office on ways in which to stand up with residents, not just in Weymouth, but as you've suggested, in surrounding communities where this is going to affect them. But the issues also come up in Berkshire County. I was in Berkshire County recently meeting with residents in various communities there. And it's like, if you don't stand up for what's happening in Weymouth or surrounding communities, you won't do the same in other communities, because we see this is happening statewide. And if we're going to transition to a clean energy economy, move away from gas, move away from fossil fuel, of course, implement and meet the benchmarks of that new historic roadmap climate legislation, it's going to be critical that we stand up against projects like this, against infrastructure like this that is getting in the way of those goals. And so I would continue that leadership of our current AG in the office, but I would add doing it in partnership with more stakeholders, which includes organizations and more residents. How do we also get some of our rural communities and more communities of color to be a part of the climate justice conversations, to be a part of the coalition, and to say this also affects you? Maybe we use different languages to say it is about health outcomes. It is about jobs. It is about, of course, protecting our planet for the next generation and so many other things that are relevant. It is about you being able to drink your water from your home, et cetera. Because as we expand that coalition, it makes it easier, of course, to fight and win in these battles at moments.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'm going to open it up to, does anyone else have a question for Andrea?
I'm just going to expand my screen. It makes it feel more interactive versus just looking at myself.
There was a question in the chat about charter schools.
Yep.
Okay.
It says, does Andrea support charter schools?
Thank you for whoever, thank you, Edward. So I am on the record supporting and have stood with charter school families. And I'll give you why that's the case. So when I was on the Boston City Council in Boston, I represented largely Dorchester and Mattapan. I live in Mattapan now with my two boys. And this is a district that is predominantly a district of color, predominantly a district of Black families. And in Mattapan in Boston, you have a 5% chance of getting into a high quality Boston public school compared to other downtown neighborhoods where it's 80%. And I'm a product of Boston Public Schools. I went to 5 of them, and I would not have made it to a Princeton University or a UCLA law school without an excellent education. But the reality is in certain communities, especially communities of color and low income communities, they don't have access to a high quality traditional public school. So I have been on the record in supporting those families and ensuring they have choice for their children, because we don't need another report to talk about how critically important it is that our families and our children have access to education. That being said, in the context of the Attorney General's race, I have been stressing, because I think there's a little bit of misinformation out there, and this is not to suggest Edward is saying this, about the expansion of charter schools, a ballot question, et cetera. That ballot question to expand charter schools went down in flames a few years ago. It's not coming back. And I do not think the role of the AG and the AG's office is to push for that to happen. The role of the AG is to ensure every family has access to high quality education and to actually hold these school systems accountable to delivering just that. And I'm the only candidate in the race that has started my career, legal career, representing children in education cases, the only candidate, and I may be the only AG candidate ever to have represented children directly in education cases, holding charter schools accountable for failing students with disabilities, for disproportionate discipline rates and other things. And I would hold all these systems accountable for every family as AG.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edward, for the question.
Is there anyone else who'd like to ask Andrea a question? John? You need to-
Okay, good evening and thank you, Andrea.
Hi, I see you. How are you?
Good. You just briefly mentioned some topics that have most impact to people in the Commonwealth, such as the problems with affordable housing, higher cost of medical care. And obviously, I agree with you on education. We should have at least community college free for everybody, and even public college, because Germany will put its citizens through 4 years of college. So
That's
I'd
right.
like you to go over the housing, the health cost, and your opinion on making higher education free to the citizens.
That's right. Thank you, John, for the question. I'll start with the end. I do think these colleges should be free. There is, I went to Princeton. The Princetons, the Harvards of the world, private institutions, they're not going to be able to meet the demand and produce all of, and sort of produce the students and the skilled workforce that we would need for the jobs that exist now and the jobs online. It is critically important that our public institutions of higher ed are not only resourced, but supported in every way possible, because they accept the most students, they are most accessible to every family, and they are critical to making sure that we are, of course, delivering on creating and delivering skilled workers for our jobs and for, of course, our employers who are in desperate need of these workers. And so I absolutely support making sure they're free, but there are other, of course, scholarships and other types of programs available to students. And let me tell you, even at Princeton, I worked my way through college and relied on scholarships, critically important for every family to have access, especially public ed institutions. And I've been on the record for that for some time. On the housing, I have been using housing actually as one example of the broad scope of the AG's office. Most only see it as sort of the top cop, as someone recently described, or the chief law enforcement officer. There's a lot that can be done in the housing context. Right now, there is major concern amongst families that have kids about lead paint discrimination. That is happening in different communities. There's concerns around a potential foreclosure crisis coming out of COVID. And back in 2008, 2009, and even under Martha Coakley and some other AGs, not only did they work with financial institutions to keep people in their homes, they even developed some grant programs to help people buy a home, or to become instead of remaining a renter, to become a homeowner. So there's critical ways in which to help families buy homes, stay in their homes. And of course, that helps families grow their wealth and to pass on something to the next generation, which is critically important. On the healthcare piece, a lot the AG's office can do to ensure every family and every resident has access to accessible, affordable healthcare. The cost piece is what's critically important to focus on, as you just suggested. And the drivers of those costs there are many drivers to that. Some of it, of course, I think involves what's been coming up quite a bit, the cost of prescription drugs for folks that have skyrocketed in some instances, even in the midst of COVID, working with our federal delegation, but there's some work we could do on the state side as well. When it comes to ensuring that community-based hospitals or nonprofit organizations providing healthcare services, including mental health services, there are ways in which the AG's office could, of course, resource some of that, but also work with other institutions to do the same, to ensure that folks have accessible healthcare in their communities and to drive down costs. And I'll just add, reviewing these larger transactions of some of our larger healthcare systems in the state, that's a critical role of the AG right now in ensuring they're not driving up costs in local communities as they look to expand into other areas. Sorry, that was a lot of questions in one, and I see some hands, so I want to be mindful. But those are just some thoughts, but there are other ways in which to, of course, show up on those issues from the AG's office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Laura?
Laura. Hi, Laura.
You're muted.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Laura, you're muted.
Can you?
There,
Yes.
There you go.
there I am. I'm on Zoom meetings all the time. You'd think I'd know better.
Understood. I I totally get it. I
Third
was
one today.
just saying that exactly.
So anyway, well, thank you for being here. It's so fun to
Of
meet you.
course.
So I'm just curious, what is your campaign doing to reach out to limited English speakers and non-English speakers? How's your
A lo-
campaign managing that?
Yes, we're doing our best. I will tell you, it's not always easy, whether it is translating things, of course. You know, we're actually about to revamp our website, which of course requires more resources to revamp it and make it more inclusive. We just hired and brought on some organizers to be able to help, of course, go into communities to build to help us organize in various communities that have different language capacity and cultural competency, and frankly, come from some of the communities we're going to. We just kicked off this Gateway Cities tour. I have been in Berkshire County, frankly, more than once, and I don't think anyone is going out to Western Mass. I've been to Springfield. I've been back to Springfield. I've been back to Worcester. I was just in Fall River, New Bedford. Of course, we'll be in your communities as well. And I've been going to surrounding communities. And as we do that, we are finding some talent that we think would be helpful in helping us reach some populations that you can't necessarily get to through just traditional ways of campaigning. And we're investing in some of that and will continue to as well. It's critically important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Here we have a guest with us today, Don.
Don. Hi, Don.
Hey, good evening. Nice to meet you, Ms.
You too.
Campbell. I have a question about the college debt. There's a lot of talk about providing free education, but of course, it has to be paid for. And I think we as Democrats need to be more forthright about describing that accurately, because it does have to be paid for. It's
That's right.
a question of who's going to pay for it. And I'd just like you to comment on forgiveness of prior debt for commitments people have already made to go into debt for higher education and forgiving that debt.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Everything has to be paid for. You're exactly right. And I always think, I come out of Boston, where I used to work, of course, on the city council, and I was a council president for some years. And we had a budget that was over $3 billion. And I always said the two things that frustrated me about government is how much time and money we waste not helping people, and just the inefficiencies. So I do think it's always important, of course, to make sure we can cover costs. And I think an AG, I know this is a role for the state auditor and other roles, of course, but the AG could play, I think, even a more active role in looking at where we spend our resources and on what, and redirecting those to priorities that residents really want. In that context, of course, what has been coming up is education, early ed, and higher ed. I'm going back to John's point. On the forgiveness piece, I am for forgiveness in the context of certain types of programming, public interest programs, for example, at the federal level. I have been a vocal supporter of programs like that. These are ways in which to incentivize a lot of young people who want to go into certain types of careers to make a difference in the community and to do certain work that does not pay well at all, to help them be able to do that and to start that pathway sooner. And I do think there are resources within government institutions. Philanthropic institutions are also paying attention to these types of issues because they see it as a barrier to really maximizing our economy and growing our economy. If folks are not going into the work that they're passionate about. They also see it as a way in which, of course, to keep young people or folks on a certain path, or to help folks who are older get back into the workforce with certain types of training programs. And if they have some type of debt, which sometimes comes up, what it might mean to help them. So I do think there are some creative conversations to make it happen. I think it's worthwhile. It's a major issue. I think colleges are charging a lot of money. I think in certain instances, it just keeps going up. Are they delivering anything new? I don't always know that to be true. And so I do think there are ways in which to be creative in paying for some of these programs that have tremendous benefit to the economy, to the workforce, and to the growth and full prosperity of our residents, especially young people.
Thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you, Don.
Emily, do you have a question for Andrea?
you.
Hi,
I
Emily.
was
How are you?
wondering- Hi, I'm good. You just came off running for mayor of Boston. Quentin Palfrey, one of your opponents, previously ran for lieutenant governor. Has it been a challenge for you, or how are you finding it building the infrastructure for a statewide race versus such a local race?
Mm-hmm. So all three of us, have run for something else. And I didn't jump into this race lightly. Never want this perception that, you're just looking for the next job and political thing. I feel like the opportunity found me in many ways. When Governor Baker made his announcement, many folks, of course, thought that Maura was going to run. And so there were lawyers in the office who called me with encouraging calls. Maura Healey was one of those folks I had a conversation with, along with other former AGs that I used to work with when I was in the private sector. And then I'm a praying woman. I name my faith all the time, prayed on it, talked to my own family, including my husband, and ultimately took the leap of faith. Because what I heard in those initial conversations is you can build a statewide operation. And I had some of those pieces of volunteers from previous work and local work, but you have to do the work. You have to get out there. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm not slowing down, that's for sure. And I'm really proud. We just got our signatures. All of that is happening certified. And this was largely because of volunteers. Volunteers I met during the caucus process, or I should say residents I met during the caucus process who became volunteers. Others, of course, who've supported in the past. And so we're continuing to grow this operation. We now have nearly 200 volunteers that are active and engaged. We want to continue to grow that. We also want to raise the resources to be able to hire organizers as well, including young people. And so we have the infrastructure, we just have to keep growing it. And the best way to do that is to get out there and earn the support of residents, including all of you, not just as delegates, but to say, I hope you will join this team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have time for one last question, Andrea?
I do. I don't know where I'm supposed to
A
be
quick
next.
one. We've got to hop over to another Zoom.
Look, I just said
Thank
my
you,
phone
Kathy.
is somewhere else, and
Yes.
then we'll just pop
5
somewhere.
Zooms tonight. So
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I don't know how quick this is. I was going to ask you about the Supreme Court and this road decision that seems to be coming up. Seems to be a vision of more and more curbs to social and justice issues that we have taken for granted the past 50 years. What will you do in Massachusetts to, if they start to go after same-sex marriage or LGBTQ rights or any of the other
Civil rights. That's
civil
right.
rights that we have worked so hard to put in place over the past 50 years.
That's right. Well, I will continue to be a fierce advocate. And the thing is, I say I'm faith-driven. I'm always optimistic because I am faith-driven. I also live in reality that there is real fear and angst in community. And particularly, of course, after the leaked memo, I've been on a whole bunch of Zooms naming, I will continue to fight for access to reproductive health care, abortion, all of that as a personal choice for someone. And the thing about here in Massachusetts is we have a lot of the laws already codified to protect us. Other states do not, but we do here. So one, I think the AG's office has to run an education campaign. As I'm going out into communities, there's still a lot of folks that do not understand that Roe is codified here. In addition to that, reproductive health care, access to contraceptive, all of that is within our health plans. That is guaranteed, even though previous administrations tried to roll that back and take it out of certain healthcare plans. That was codified here. The next thing that needs to be done, though, is how do we protect providers? There's nothing on the books right now in terms of civil liability, criminal liability. That's a major issue. New York right now is taking the lead on that. We need to catch up. Providers themselves, there's going to be a shortage of providers providing services. Critically important that we have conversations on that. I already know our current AG and her office is playing a significant role on these issues. And I would continue that leadership, fighting fiercely and boldly for the very rights that people have been fighting for generations. And I do think there's an opportunity actually for Massachusetts to continue to lead the way because of not only the foundation of our own constitution informing our national constitution, but because of certain laws that we have on the books. There's an expectation that we will show up in these conversations statewide to ensure all of these rights, including for marginalized folks, people of color, that they're protected. So there's a leadership role here too, that we should all, of course, be excited to be a part of, again, pushing Massachusetts to always lead the way.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your joining us tonight and wish you the best of luck in your campaign. And we will see you at the convention on June 3rd and 4th.
Thank you all so much for having me. I hope to earn your support and vote at the convention and in September, and hope to see you in person at some point really soon. Kathy, thank you for everything. And others on the call, even who helped with signatures, who volunteered. To Emily's point, I'm really grateful. So thank you. And all stay safe and healthy and have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.